Hey y'all, what's up? Welcome back to my channel, or if this is your first time here, welcome. I'm so happy you decided to take that random leap of faith here on my channel. My name's Dana, and in today's video, we are going to be talking blushes. To be honest, when it comes to cheek products, I think I'm more of like a bronzer highlighter gal. I'm actually taking this idea from Jessica Braun at Jam Beauty 89. Oh no, just kidding. I think she kind of remarketed everything to Jessica Braun. I've talked about her so many times here on my channel. If you guys haven't checked her out yet, I'll definitely leave all of her info down below. She is without a doubt one of my favorite content creators to watch. But a few months back, there was a tag called the eyeshadow palette tag. I did film one of those as well that I'll go ahead and link above here, but I decided I would take Jessica's lead. She decided a good way to go through and declutter her collection was doing one of these videos on pretty much like every category in her makeup collection. I think so far she's done eyeshadow palettes, lip products, and then blushes. I thought this was such a great idea because I know I'm definitely guilty of keeping some products in my collection for that like just in case, which is so silly because I'd rather somebody else get use out of these products instead of them just sitting here and collecting dust or expiring in my drawers. And blush is just something that I have way too much of. So I thought this was a great way just to kind of give each, well not each, but several products their spotlight through these different categories. As I mentioned in my recent favorites video, I do plan on doing a blush declutter, so stay tuned for that. But let's go ahead and get into the questions because I've been talking way too long. Number one is most used or your everyday blush. Now, if you've been with me for a while, then this should come as no shocker. Laura Geller Blush and Brightens. Sadly, Laura Geller got pulled from Ulta, which bums me out because I feel like that was like the easiest place to pick up these blushes. You can still order on QVC, laurageller.com. I think I have 4 or 5 full-size ones, and then I know I have 3 other shades in smaller palettes. I just adore this formula so much. This specific shade is almost like a blush, bronzer, and highlighter all in one. As you can see, it just has all this veining in there. Along with being like my everyday and most used blush, I would definitely call these underrated. I've talked about them so much, it's ridiculous. If you've been with me for a while, you're probably like, shut up, we know. But you guys, seriously, it's good. If you've never tried them before, they're definitely worth checking out. Okay, number 2, most expensive blush. This was actually a gift from my best friend Laura. This is one of the Tom Ford blushes. I have mine in the shade 4 Savage. I really mainly wear this one during the cooler months. Something about it just gives me like Christmas vibes. I was between this and then the Charlotte Tilbury, is it Cheek to Chic blushes, I think. Those are 40 or 45. This Tom Ford blush is like 63 or 68. Now that I know how much it is, it's like the pressure's on. Okay, one dip, that was probably $1 right there, but this is such a beautiful blush. Moving on to the opposite end, least expensive, or I guess cheapest blush. I've decluttered a lot of the e.l.f. the baked blushes, right? The ones that came in the little domes. I know people love those, but the fact that you had to scrape it off first or like scrape it before every use, that was just too much for me, to where I'm like, I'd rather just have a blush that I know is good, that just works from the get-go. The Wet n Wild blushes, unfortunately, I think this one is now discontinued, which is sad because this is actually one of my favorites. It's called Hummingbird Hype, but honestly, all of their baked blushes are so beautiful. But this shade here, I don't want to talk about it too much because if you can't get it, then I just feel like a brat. Almost like a blush and highlighter in one. It just has this amazing nectar, peachy, glowy vibe on the skin. I will check the Wet n Wild site and see if I can find anything similar. So this is what I'm wearing on top. Worth the hype. For me, the NARS blushes. I know these NARS blush palettes can be pricey, but honestly, I feel like they're really worth it, especially whenever one single NARS blush, I haven't checked recently, but I know they're in the high 20s to maybe mid 30s. If you can find a blush palette where you enjoy every single shade, I really do think that you get your money's worth. This is without a doubt my favorite. It's the Exposed palette, but the actual formula of these blushes, it's just unreal. Something about the glow that it gives your cheeks. In the pan, obviously besides the highlighter, it looks like it's just a typical matte baked blush. You can see this very like subtle sheen on it. These 4 here, the highlighter and these 3 blushes are definitely the ones that I get the most use out of. I'm just not the biggest pink blush fan, but surprisingly, I do really like these just because they are more on the berry side rather than your like typical Barbie bubblegum pink type of blush. Not worth the hype. I don't really think that these get hyped up too much anymore, but whenever they were first released, they did. I'm not gonna lie, I was so excited to get my hands on them, and I've held on to them because they're pricey. I think I've decluttered maybe like 1 or 2. I need to go through and get rid of more. The one that I use the most is Flesh and Fantasy, but something about this formula I just find sometimes looks very powdery on my face. This is really, this one, and then I think Lines and Last Night, which is such like an inappropriate name. Those are the 2 that look the best, but I really noticed with the pinky, and I think there was maybe even like a fuchsia type of shade. Those look so powdery and dry on. And if you guys are familiar with Marc Jacobs Beauty, you know that their products aren't cheap by any means. I just did not think that that formula or blush was worth the hype at all. The packaging is amazing, but that's really all that it's got going for it. I really do need to go through and declutter more of those because I really only ever use those 2 shades. A favorite from a favorite brand. That one was easy for me. At Flower Beauty, I love their blush bombs. My most used though are Cinnamon and Nectar. I just love cream blushes. Whether it's like a stick or a tube, I think I do lean towards more like tube or pump type of cream blushes. I want to try the new Rare Beauty blushes so bad. I'm typically not crazy about like celebrity beauty lines. I don't like have anything against them, but I don't get as excited as I think other people do. But I have been seeing swatches of her cream blushes, Selena Gomez, and those look amazing. Plus the packaging is just so cute. I love the little lid on it. But Flower Beauty you can find at the drugstore. Cinnamon and Nectar are both amazing shades, especially if you just love really easy neutral blushes that go with tons of different looks. I just really love the formula. I find that it's really long wearing, whether it's like in the summer, hot and humid months, or later in the winter, especially whenever my skin, especially my cheeks are drier. I always like to go in with some sort of liquid or cream formula. So this is without a doubt a favorite. I'm at the last little bit of it. It looks nasty. Don't judge. It gets used a lot, okay? That's a good thing. The newest, I haven't really purchased any blush lately because as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, blush is just something that I have so much of. But my newest one is one of the Grande Pop Plumping Liquid Blushes. I've done several videos about these already. They just come with a large doe foot applicator. This one's also called Cinnamon, isn't it? Yeah, Cinnamon Sugar. I have several of these. This one is my most used. The thing is with these, they give off this slight cooling plumping effect, but I really only find that it's noticeable in the lighter shades whenever I have to go in with more than just like 2 little drops. But Cinnamon Sugar is so pigmented, I typically only go in with 1 tiny little doink on each side, so I don't really notice it with that. It doesn't bother me, but if you're just not used to that cooling, plumping feeling on your cheeks, you probably wouldn't be the biggest fan. I personally really like that formula, and I notice that it is very long wearing. So that is my newest. Moving on to my oldest, it would be one of these MAC blushes. I'm not quite sure which one. I have MAC Warm Soul, which this is the original. Samantha Ravindala has talked about before in the past that they did reformulate Warm Soul to where it's not the same. I'm so glad that I have the original. This was one of my most used blushes ever. I was obsessed with this blush for years and years. It's definitely old, but it still works fine. There's like nothing weird growing on it. It doesn't smell funky. And now since I know that it's not the same, there's like no way that I would ever give this up. Then we have MAC Tenderlink. I want to say I bought these both on the same day, and these were like some of my first blushes ever. Even whenever I first started wearing makeup, I was never really into blush. I would always go in with, was it from Bonnabelle or something? No. I think it was Bonnabelle. It was in this like clear canister on the bottom with a white lid, and I want to say it just had like sun bronze or something on it on top. I'm gonna find it and post a photo here. I used to buff the mess out of that all over my cheeks. I don't think MAC Tenderling is even made anymore, which is sad because this is such a great everyday blush. Okay, moving on, we have Best Memory. This one's easy for me. I don't know what it is, but anytime I go on vacation, I always pack Benefit Coralista. Even on the last cruise that we went on back in January, whenever we went to Hawaii several years ago, there's just something about Coralista that I feel like screams vacation to me. But I checked on Ulta and Sephora and Benefit's site. They don't make this blush anymore. Why? That's crazy to me. I always thought Coralista was one of the top sellers. I know Dallas is really popular too, but I always thought it was Coralista was like their top blush. I didn't see it on there, which is really sad. It's just exactly what the name says, just a really pretty glowy coral shade. Something about it just looks amazing on fair skin, on tan skin. If you have a really rich skin tone, it's almost more of a blush topper type of glowy highlighter, but with no actual glitter, just more of like that shimmery sheen. It's so beautiful. This is another product that's really old, but I don't care. I love it. Most underrated. This was one that was super easy for me. I wanted to say the Laura Geller blushes again, but I'm pretty sure I've talked about that in at least like 2 of my most underrated makeup products. So I'm gonna go in with this one. It's from the brand Holika. Holika is a K-beauty brand. This is their new drop Lumi Cheek. So I wanna say there's either 2 or 3 shades. I have mine in shade 1, Caramel Luster. So it is a cream blush, but it's another one of those products that kind of like the Hummingbird Hype or the Coralista, where yes, there is that actual underlying pigment, but it's almost like a glowy blush slash highlighter all in one. If you love that wet cheek look, you would love this product. I just like to go in with my finger, tap this onto my cheeks, even on days whenever you're doing a no makeup look. This one is perfect. In my opinion, this is a better version of NARS Orgasm. I know everyone and their mother loves that blush, but to me, this is a better formula of that. Like, you not only get that wet look, you still get that very just like pretty golden luster layer that sits on top. I don't know how, but it's not sticky on your cheeks. This stays looking wet, but it somehow sets, but still looks, oh, I'm gonna say it, moist on your cheeks. So if you love a good glassy skin type of vibe and you haven't tried those out yet, 10 out of 10 recommend. It is such a good product. Okay, so we did most underrated, now most overrated. Going right back to NARS Orgasm. This isn't a formula thing because, as I mentioned earlier, I love NARS blushes. It's more of the hype and color and everything. Honestly, this could be most hyped or overhyped and overrated. I know some of y'all are like staring daggers at the screen right now, but I just don't get it. And I think it's just more of a personal preference thing. While I love the golden sheen, golden luster vibe that it gives, I'm not crazy about the color. I don't get the appeal. I've always thought Benefit Coralista was way better than NARS Orgasm. I realize this is more coral, this is more pink. I guess you just have to be a pink blush lover to appreciate this one. I just always keep it anyways because I like to use it as an eyeshadow on some days. Skip Geek Creme Brulee. I'll run some of that through my crease and then apply some of this on my lids, and I do think it's pretty, but it's just not a blush that I ever reach for. Okay, and kind of sticking with the same blush again, sorry if I'm being boring, but without a doubt for me, whenever I think of the topic of most nostalgic or old school beauty YouTube, this is what everyone talked about. I remember whenever the duo was like what everyone raved about, Makeup by Tiffany D, Blair and Elle, they all talked about the NARS duo with Laguna and Orgasm. I'll just never get this, but it's something that I feel like I have to have in my collection. And like I said, I do get some use out of it as an eyeshadow, but I hardly ever use that as my blush. The very final question is most disappointing. I actually already decluttered it. I had a mini trio of the Hourglass blushes. I love the Hourglass bronzer. I love just the normal ambient, like the original ambient powder, not even the highlighter. But the blushes, I just didn't get. I don't know if I didn't get right shit. No, I don't even want to say it was a shade issue because in the trio, there were 3 different shades and all 3 of them just gave my skin this weird gray cast ashy look. I just could not get it to work. I don't know what it was about the blush formula because the bronzer is one of my most used bronzers. I loved the powders, but something about the blush, I never understood it. And those are expensive powders. So that was definitely the most disappointing for me. I'm sorry if I'm disappointing you by not having the physical product here to swatch for you. All right, so there you have it, just some blushes that I wanted to spotlight from my collection. If you guys would like to participate in this tag as well, I'll be sure to leave all the categories down below, or if you happen to film videos, I would love if you sent me a link to the video. I always love watching new people. If you haven't checked out Jessica's video yet, I'll be sure to link that down below as well. As always, thank you so much for spending part of your day with me and hanging out. If you'd like to watch some more, I'll go ahead and leave some videos here for you. And that's it for today. So I'll see you guys next time. Bye.